Vanakkam and welcome to ART, அதாவது Avinash Ramachandran Talkies. In this episode, we are going to look at Trivikram Srinivas' latest film, Guntur Kaaram, starring Mahesh Babu, Ramya Krishnan, Prakash Raj, Jayaram, Ishwari Rao, Sreeleela, Meenakshi Chaudhary, Murli Sharma, Vennela Kishore, Rahul Ravindran, Rao Ramesh, Jagapati Babu, and Raghu Babu, and other notable actors who populate this world of randomness that delivers on what was promised but makes us question if that promise should have convinced us in the first place. Let me be honest here. Except for a few miscalculations here, misogyny there, and a whole lot of confusion in other places, Guntur Kaaram was a film I quite enjoyed. I had my share of fun in most of the comical scenes. I was emotionally connected to the plight of Mahesh Babu's Ramana. There were some nice surprises in the narrative also, despite it being based on a not so novel storyline. If it's Agyatavasi or if it's Ala Venkatapuramlo, the prodigal son returning home to set things right is a Trivikram template by now. And there are other interesting asides in Guntur Kaaram also, but most of these scenes work as standalone sequences but never turn into a cohesive film. Now let's talk about the story. So, there is a young boy whose mother, in the absence of the father, leaves him alone to fend for himself and decides to get married for the second time. Which mother does like this, you might ask, but let's get there sometime later. Coming back to the storyline, due to certain circumstances, the young boy loses sight in his left eye. This estranged son grows up to be a local ruffian / businessman who is loved by his people but craves for the love from his mother. Years later, he returns home to solve certain things and ensure all's well that ends well. Now, this is Guntur Kaaram's primary plot, but this is also the primary plot of the 2005 blockbuster in Malayalam, Rajamanikam. Well, Rajamanikam simply concentrated on familial issues. Guntur Kaaram, which is much bigger in scale, also places the film in a bigger narrative with caste politics and electoral politics thrown into the mix. Coincidence or inspired, I'll leave it up to you to decide. Nevertheless, Guntur Kaaram gets a lot of things right, especially in the beginning. Mahesh Babu gets a rather subdued introduction. Of course, he would be getting a massier scene in just a few minutes, but this comes only after the conflict is established. Trivikram wastes no time in letting us know why Ramana is feared and what it is that he wants the most. Right from the moment he sets his eyes on Prakash Raj, who plays his grandfather and the head honcho of the ruling political party, Trivikram sets the tone for quite the showdown between these two characters. That is why probably when such a scene never comes in the film, it feels like a terrible letdown. There is also this wonderful scene involving Ramya Krishnan's shadow falling on Ramana, who's craving for his mother's love and attention. It has the right amount of elevation, and when they finally meet each other, it gets even better because the payoff is terrific. And the stage is set for whatever comes up next. But what comes up next is a disappointment because we hardly see them together after that. And the multiple reveals about the real reason behind the estrangement between mother and son happen so late into the film that we aren't really blown away by the revelation. It is more like, oh, ade jariginda, sare, tarvata enti? The sentimental core of Guntur Kaaram feels like an afterthought. Most of Guntur Kaaram is just a series of random happenings that fall under two categories. What did I just watch? But I don't know, but it's so much fun. And what did I just watch? This feels so out of place, it's atrocious. Like for instance, 2 out of 3 action blocks, which are actually nice to watch, so random and so inconsequential that it hurts. It's super disappointing to see the roles played by Sreeleela and Meenakshi Chaudhary, but at least Sreeleela gets to showcase her dancing skills while Meenakshi is invisible. The dialogues in these portions are so bad that it's not just offensive, but just sad. It isn't like Ramana is a bad person that doesn't get the offensive nature of his words. In fact, Vennela Kishore's character acts as the buffer and lets him know that what he says isn't the right things. But who really listens to a comedian in any film, right? Also, apart from brilliant Prakash Raj and to an extent Rao Ramesh, Other actors like Jagapati Babu, Jairam, Sunil, Rahul and Murli Sharma are criminally wasted. But there are moments of ingenuity that made me wish Trivikram and co went all out on delivering a quirky family drama rather than a superficial mass masala film. Take, for instance, the Devdas type Jairam who listens to old vinyl records. It's funny to see him, who's been in jail for quite some time, come back and have Sholay, hits of superstar Krishna, and wait for it, Hans Zimmer in the same collection. Then there is that scene involving Gelatin Babji, played by a wonderful Ajay, which is a hoot. And of course, that entire stretch preceding the viral Kurchi Mattapetti and involving actors like Madhusudan Rao and Ajay Ghosh, which are just hilarious. But then it also makes the villains exceedingly one note and harmless. In fact, they work far better as comic reliefs rather than bloodthirsty antagonists. In fact, I was imagining Guntur Kaaram to be a video game where the villains at every passing level become funnier than before. And honestly, it doesn't feel unintentional either. Trivikram and co knew exactly what they were doing with these characters. And that adds to the fun quotient of the film. And that is why it makes us question, why didn't he choose to go with this but instead add unnecessary flavors into the mix? If the out of place Jairam angle is laughable, the entire Sreeleela Mahesh Babu portions where there's viewing, there's flirting, that is just infuriating. Also, misogyny is indeed a problem. Why do they have to tarnish the nostalgia of an Okkadu to wring out a distasteful comparison that leads to a dance number that would have existed anyway? Of course, we can't question the maker's desire to translate what they wrote, but that doesn't mean it doesn't warrant a criticism. Also, the bombastic dialogues do work, but it is the emotional ones that ring louder. For instance, when Ramana says his life is fair and lovely from the outside, but unfair and lonely on the inside, the rhyme scheme is primed for trolling. But Mahesh Babu sells it effectively. I empathized with the man who had everything but what he truly wished for. Also, I did wish the script explored more of the lack of vision in his eyes. The same thing when it happens in Rajamanikyam, they mine it like anything. It is used for comedy, it's used for drama, action and romance too. However, in Guntur Kaaram, the same thing is just used as a side note and nothing comes of it. Honestly, even the central conflict of the mother and son not meeting each other isn't effectively milked. It is surprising how a lot of important things in Guntur Kaaram are superficial, but exposition and exploration happens in scenes involving Sreeleela and Mahesh Babu, which unfortunately are mostly inconsequential. Honestly, it doesn't matter that films of this genre have a flimsy premise. Most of them do. In fact, we enter the theatre knowing very well that logic isn't a prerequisite and we're up for anything and everything. Some films get the basics right but miss out on the decorations and the embellishments. Some films get the decorations and embellishments right but miss out on getting the basics in order. And then there are films like Guntur Kaaram which get both right, both wrong, manage to keep both happy all at the same time. How? The power of mass masala films and of course the superstardom. Mahesh Babu does all the heavy lifting and almost manages to pull off a blinder. No pun intended at all. Well, I'm not a big fan of how the camera keeps Ramya Krishnan out of focus in a particularly emotional scene involving her and Mahesh Babu. I get it. That is the pitfall of the genre. The lack of proper writing of the women characters, the blatant misogyny or the rather misuse of solid actors aren't actually balanced out by the funny portions or the emotional scenes or the action blocks, the elevation mass masala scenes, but none of them matter because Guntur Kaaram trains all its focus on one element that trumps it all, star service. And on this front, Guntur Kaaram hits it out of the park with a rather assured Mahesh Babu, trying his best to hold forth and almost succeeding. Almost. Thank you for joining me in this episode of ART, அதாவது Avinash Ramachandran Talkies. Do let me know what you thought of Guntur Kaaram and yours truly's review of the same. Well, see you when I see you and always remember, life is a revolution.